Hello and welcome. Today I'll be sharing two things that I wish I knew when I first started playing Blitz chess. Let's go. Today's video was requested by the greatest 89er, so thank you very much for this video idea. And if you have any suggestions, any chess topics you would like explained on this channel, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I read every single comment, so don't hesitate. The video will be split up into two parts, as is the question. First, we're going to talk about how do you actually stop and calculate in Blitz, and when should you do it, instead of just playing the first move that comes to mind. And the second part, how to use that increment. For example, in 3+2, you get 2 seconds per move. How do you make the most of this and not overestimate or underestimate? First of all, when should you stop and calculate? When should you spend more time in Blitz than the average couple seconds per move? The answer is very straightforward, but it's hard to apply. The answer is when there's a lot of tactical tension in the position. Or in other words, when your next move might significantly contribute to the result of the game. You should really stop and make sure it's the right move. We call this a critical position. When the position is critical, you want to take your time because that's where the game is being decided. So in your mind, you have to separate critical positions and non-critical positions. Non-critical ones are just where you could play any piece improvement and you're going to be okay. Hopefully you're enjoying the video so far. If you want to improve even faster than just with these free YouTube videos, I offer personalized one-on-one coaching. So feel free to reach out to me through the link down below. Let's get back to the video. Let's take a look at an example game to draw the line between critical and non-critical positions. So I'm starting off with the white pieces here. I'm playing the Japawa London in this Blitz game. And I'm just doing my opening theory. Against this bishop f5, my opening says that I should go f3, g4, h4, trying to embarrass the bishop here. Nothing interesting so far. Whenever you do your opening, just do your opening. That's the same in Blitz. Rapid, so you can counter Blitz this out. So after h5, there's g5, knight goes back. I've seen this all before. And now, depending on where the knight goes back, I have different variations, but I'm still in my opening book. So this is all fine. And the first sort of weird moment comes soon. Knight f4, bishop e7. And now here my book ends, I believe. So I decided to just take the opportunity to mess up my opponent's pawns and simply play bishop h3, putting pressure on the weak pawn here. So this is the first time that I actually thought about my move instead of just blitzing out some theory that I had from earlier. And it's already kind of getting critical. What do I mean by that? The game might already be decided because I'm putting immediate pressure on my opponent. So after bishop h3, I counted on my opponent either going king f7 or knight f8, both protecting this. Because if he, let's say, ignores me, this is a very important pawn for him, because when I take it and he moves to the side, I also take the central d5 pawn. And with 2 pawns down, I don't think that black can have any compensation here. So for that reason, he has to defend it, which is why my opponent played knight f8. Very logical. And in this position, do I consider this critical or not? It's more of an intuitive thing. What do I mean by that? There's no absolute rule that says like, oh, this amount of piece tension or this amount of pawn tension makes it critical or non-critical. But it's your intuition which plays a huge role here. So obviously, if there's 5 pieces hanging, both the kings are wide open in some other position, then of course it's critical. On the other hand, if nothing is hanging and we're just kind of barely making contact with one another, then it's non-critical at all. And you can just play any decent development move, and it doesn't matter at all which one you do, because it's Blitz chess. So if it were classical chess, where you develop a single piece might make all the difference, but in Blitz chess, just literally get all your pieces into the game at top speed. So like castle short, queen e2, rook e1, your rooks are here, and e4, let's go fight. Of course, before you make the actual committing move of e4, you would have to calculate to make sure it works. But the point is that these moves that kind of improve your position one by one, get all the pieces in the game, these are not so relevant. So we want to spend very little time here so that when we reach a critical position, such as when we break the position with e4 or something like this, which is potentially a pawn sacrifice, then we need that time. So to give you some numbers, roughly, let's say that you play 3+2. So every move on average should be like, I don't know, 5 seconds, let's say. And when it comes to that critical position, easily you're going to have time to spend 30 seconds, a minute, something like this. So let's see. Currently, this is not critical. I have a little bit of pressure here, but nothing immediate. A little bit of pressure here, nothing immediate. So I'm just getting more pieces in the fight. I chose queen d3 as opposed to one of these moves because I have some pressure here as well. Whenever you can mount up pressure, that usually is a great signal because sometimes there will be some sacrifices based on these multiple points of pressure. For example, you can already kind of envision some sort of bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, queen g6 double attack. Unfortunately, it doesn't work immediately because he has king d7, ugly as it looks, but if he were forced to play king f8, then I would regain my piece immediately. I mean, that's also a question if I have it right now, because after take, queen g6, king d7, I could just take the central d5 pawn and claim compensation easily, especially because it's Blitz and king safety is #1 in Blitz. But it's a little bit dicey. My opponent plays c4 anyway, not even allowing me the chance to go for this. So I just play queen d2 and I just say, okay, that's fine, but there's no more central pressure for black. Bishop d6 played, and I go queen h2. I've seen this maneuver a couple times in this opening. This diagonal is pretty important. So after bishop takes, queen takes, we have queen e7, all pretty standard. And again, it's not a critical position. I could castle short here, I could castle long. Definitely I'm looking at castling to finish my development though. I'm not really looking at any sort of e4 because I see that action is happening while my king is in the center. So that goes against chess principles. So for that reason, I chose long castling, but short castling is also fine. And after knight d7, this is the critical moment. Why is this the critical moment? You might say, there's not too much pressure, but right now you are developed and your opponent is not. That's critical, because this means that we can potentially just rip open the position and just go for the kill before they get the castle. You might say, oh, he's just one move away. There's no way I could do anything. What if I told you this game ended in 4 moves? You would probably believe me. Here's how it went. e4. I'm basically saying, okay, you can castle, but that'll cost you a center pawn. And that's not an easy pawn to lose. So he decided to take. And instead of recapturing, at which point my opponent really could castle, and maybe I have some sort of d5, but I'm not sure how it really plays out after knight d8, take. It requires some calculation, and it's not clear to me that it's winning. Instead of this, I chose the much more aggressive and violent d5. Now, I did spend a lot of time here, because this did require calculation. So it's not like I blitzed out e4 as soon as I saw this position, but I was like, okay, after e4, my opponent likely has to take, and if I have to recapture, then, I mean, it's not that good. Maybe I can find something more aggressive. But after e4 takes, I saw d5, and I was like, huh, if he takes, I take back with a knight. So it took me about, let's say, 20 seconds to calculate this very short sequence. And my conclusion was I just rip open the position, because after knight takes d5 at the end there, I hit the queen and I hit knight c7, which is a fork. So my opponent has no time to react to anything and the game is just over. So e4, d takes e4, d5. And just to show that, so if my opponent had taken, he did not, but if he did, knight takes d5, and now the queen must move. Let's say queen f7 for the sake of the example, and knight c7 is effectively game over. Wherever the king moves, I'm gonna take the rook. Okay, instead of this, except this where I just have better, but let's say the king moves to f8 or something, I could even take this with tempo, I could take the rook, I'm just grabbing a ton of material. So this is effectively game over. So that's why my opponent did not take. They went knight d8, trying to protect everything. But after take, knight d5, my opponent just resigned the game. The reason they resigned is because next move, again, they're going to move the queen f7 or something. I'm going to take this knight, because currently it's the protector of the c7 square. So I'm going to take here, they recapture, and then I do a family fork over here. So that's enough to convince my opponent to resign in this position, because he just has nothing going for him. I'm all the way developed, there's no counterplay, and the game is over. So that was a very high-rated game, by the way. I believe my opponent was also a title player, but just goes to show, one critical moment, and that's all I needed. And I had enough time here, because all the previous things was like opening theory until move, I don't know, what was it, 12? And then a couple of just logical, healthy moves, where I didn't spend too much time, so I had plenty of time where it mattered, which is the move e4. So here I could just like pause and calculate without any pressure about time, because I had plenty as a result of great time usage previously. So non-critical, you could do whatever you want, just do something decent. Your quality of play must go down, because if you try to play just like you would classical chess, where you try to find the absolute best every single move, you will lose on time, guaranteed. So for that reason, you must realize, okay, my quality of play must go down. So I'm going to take these non-critical decisions. Do I put my rook on e1, f1, whatever? Do I castle long or short? My king's going to be okay either way. Like, this is a bit optically better, okay, but this is not a mistake either. So we take these non-critical decisions to save time so that we have more time when it comes to the critical ones, when we tactically fight, blast open the position, win material, and so on. And the second thing that I wish I knew when I started first playing Blitz chess is the so-called expectations method. What does this mean? When it's your opponent's move, you have to expect their next move and prepare one in advance. This is the key to surviving time trouble in Blitz, to building time with your increment, and even if you're doing it over the board as opposed to online, because online I could use pre-moves. For example, if I expect my opponent to take my bishop here, I can just pre-move queen takes. Or if I expect them to take my knight, I could pre-move pawn takes knight. And the reason this is a safe pre-move is because it only happens if they actually take my knight. If they don't take my knight, I can't capture my own knight, so that gets cancelled. So if you're playing online, pre-moves are incredibly useful if you're very low on time. But if you're over the board, you can also kind of pre-move in your mind. If he plays this, I play this. If he plays that, I play this, and so on. So that's called the expectations method. Sounds very simple, but you'll be surprised how many chess players never apply this. They play their own move and they're like, oh, okay. They just stare at the board until their opponent actually moves and they're like, okay, what does that move do? And they have their thought process. So they just kind of blankly look at the board, their opponent takes here or something, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess I recapture. And that's like 2 seconds wasted, which is in 3+2, your entire increment. So even if you're playing over the board, while your opponent is going towards your knight to like capture it, you can already put your hand above your pawn. So when he presses the clock, you take it and press the clock. That's like half a second. So you get 1.5 seconds per move if you do this. And it's not illegal by any means. I've played a ton of Blitz chess, and that's what everybody does, to build up their time if they're down to their last seconds, let's say. So in this particular case, let's say that I'm playing the move knight e4, just centralizing my knight. I'm really low on time, so I'm just making expectations quickly. I'm staying 100% focused, looking at the board, and I'm like, okay, what does my opponent do? In other words, what would I do as my opponent? It's the same question, just whatever is natural to you. So if I were black, maybe I would take here. Okay, I just recapture. And if he goes c4 after that to pin my queen, that's actually not so much of an issue because I could just block it on d4. And so notice how I'm doing calculation and I'm staying focused during my opponent's time. So I'm actually using my opponent's time to get more information about the position and make sure that I blunder less and just increase my understanding of what's going on. So as soon as he plays this, I'm instantly recapturing. Not afraid of it being a blunder because I calculated that I have knight d4. And if he goes c5, I just go back and he blocked up his bishop with his own pawn. If he trades, I take back, no problem. So I'm doing calculation even when it's my opponent's turn, as opposed to a lot of players who would blankly look at the board, and when their opponent plays this, they're like, okay, if I take back, oh, that's kind of dangerous because like maybe he like depending on your speed of calculation, you might just flag here straight up, even if you have like 10 seconds on the clock, because you're gonna start your calculation only after this, while you could have seen it during your opponent's move. Like it wasn't that far away. It's not like the board goes blank when it's not your move. If that were the case, all of which I just said goes out the window, but we can see the board even while it's our opponent's turn. So we can use that to our advantage. That's the key. So after knight takes, I take back. If my opponent still hasn't played their move, they're giving it a very long thought, then I can make a second expectation. So far, I just made one expectation. If he takes here, I take back. I can make a second one. What if he goes, for example, knight b4? Discovery on the rook here, which is defended, so that's fine. But then the point of knight b4 is to like hit my pawn on a2. The pawn on c2 is defended, not a problem. So against knight b4, my move would be a3, to just put him back. And okay, if he plays that in the second that I make that expectation, then I will play it instantly. If he still hasn't played a move, if he has thought about this move for like 30 seconds, I can make even more expectations. So the longer your opponent takes to think about their move, the more accurately you will predict their next move because you have more of their moves in your set of expectations, let's say. So let's say the game continues, takes, and now I could also make the expectation the very simple one. If he takes, what do I take back with? I could start thinking about that right now, even though it's my opponent's move. So I have that move ready, and so on. So that's a very simple and logical explanation of why you should predict the opponent's moves before they happen. Let's see another example. So here we have a position where we're just up a piece, and when you're up a piece, you want to trade. And instead of blitzing out rook takes e8 immediately, you still have to check it, even though it's obvious that they recapture, right? You still have to blunder check. Of course they're going to recapture. What else would they do? Actually, rook takes e8 is a blunder, because it doesn't come with check, so you're vulnerable to counterattacks. And there is one. Queen takes a1 check. So they put this in between move, and now after king g2, they recapture, we're actually down an exchange. So even when it comes to like obvious moves, like recaptures, still you have to make expectations, and this helps with not blundering and so on. So make sure to use the expectations method. Let's see one more example. When it comes to a move like this, you can also blunder check your move using the expectations method. So here, a lot of players would just go, oh, I can fork the queen and rook, let's go. But this is a critical move. Either you win material or you don't. So take some time. And you will pretty quickly see that after knight d3, there's the backwards move knight takes d3. It's not the easiest move to spot because we're used to their knights going down and our knights going up. So technically even this is a backwards knight move, but I've seen so many players just hang a piece straight up because they get excited or emotional and they don't use the expectations method. Just to show you one more example, so in this position, e4 was played by my 24-41 rated opponent, and I took, and while it was my opponent's turn, as soon as I took, he didn't take much time for this move, but as soon as I took, I was like, okay, he's going to go knight d2 or knight h4. In theory, he could also go knight e1, but this doesn't make much sense. So knight d2 to probably recapture my pawn, or knight h4 to stop my attack. And against knight h4, I had planned g5, seeing that the knight is actually trapped. And after knight d2, I had planned bishop h3. By this time, my opponent had played knight d2, I played bishop h3 very soon. And my expectation was, if he takes, I take back. If he takes knight takes e4, I trade off the bishops and I go queen f3, which is a fork. So I'm constantly calculating, and because we're both low on time here, we're both under 1 minute. In the game, he decided to take, just blundering this tactic, and I ended up being up a piece. So the endgame was pretty interesting, but in any case, this was the expectations method in real time. Hopefully the expectations method makes sense. Essentially, to recap, we said try to expect their next move and prepare one in advance. And if you guess it right, you will see that you can play your move instantly, even over the board. Not necessarily as a pre-move in online Blitz, but even over the board chess. If you're playing it, that 2-second increment should be more than enough to build time, not just stay on the same time. We're going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. And if you like the video and you like the idea of chess improvement in general, feel free to subscribe on my channel to see more stuff like this. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice week, and I'll talk to you very soon. Take it easy.